Hi, I'm Christina Rodenbeck from the Oxford Astrologer, and I'm here with my chum, Sally Kirkman. I was thinking chum, that's quite a nice word, isn't it? Chum, chumette, my chum, which sums up chum, colleague, and friend. Sally Kirkman to carry on with Astrology Talks Investigates. What are we investigating this time, Sally?
Well, we're going to look at one of the biggest music festivals in the world, Glastonbury, which has been going for over 50 years. And Christina's dressed accordingly in a hippie poncho.
Freezing here. I am so cold. It's mid-March when we're recording this, and it's cold.
So yeah, Glastonbury. Have you ever been?
I've never been. I am. I wouldn't say it's the idea of the toilets and the crowds. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one of the downsides of festivals. I've never been actually, and that surprises me because I was a hippie chick festival goer back in the day. I did Stonehenge Festival, but I've never been to Glastonbury. But I've got friends now who are, desperately want to get tickets for this big major event, and it, there's getting the headline spot in Glastonbury as well is big news. So it's been going over 50 years.
It's a classic thing of our times, though, isn't it? It's gone from being anti-establishment to being so establishment that it's actually on the BBC, and that there's it's part of the establishment. It's part of the summer program now, isn't it? It's Henley Regatta, darling, and Glastonbury.
Yes, and that's, the ticket prices have shot up again. Yeah. So there is a lot. It's only the elite who can, people with money who can afford it now. So it's completely changed what was a hippie, free festival, free love back in the day.
Some of it was free. I mean, my kids don't go to that, are not interested at all. They go to sort of Boomtown and things like that, other festivals. And what's interesting is that it's part of that festival movement, which was happening in the early 70s, and which Woodstock was also part of, which seemed like it might be a sort of flash in the pan, but actually is just grown and grown and grown, and is a really, really important part of culture in this country, isn't it? Because there's a wilderness, there's tons of festivals, all of them quite big, many of them very expensive, huge contributors to local economies. They're big employers, and there are a lot of people who that's their job, is doing festivals in whatever way, whether that's doing the food vans or whatever. So it's really interesting how this sort of outsider hippie thing has become this major economic engine here, economic and cultural engine in Britain anyway. So come here in the summer, any weekend or any week, you would be able to go to a big festival somewhere.
And I'd be interested to know what the average age is who go to Glastonbury now. Actually,
it's old, I think. I mean, in my asking around, it seems to be quite a middle-aged thing to do.
Yeah,
because younger people want a different experience.
Yeah. Well, Elton John's headlining this year.
Yeah.
And he's old school, isn't he?
He's super old school.
And they have, there's been, because it was always seen as a sort of rock, it was the rock festival, Glastonbury. We should put the chart up.
I'm going to do that. Why? Carry on chatting while
but and so there's been controversies along the way when there's been a rapper headlining. I think Jay-Z, Kanye West had people saying, what are they doing headlining? But it's got to change with the times. Although, again, 2023, big controversy because the three headlines, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night on the Pyramid stage, are all men.
Again.
So, and there's hardly any women headliners. And again, I think Lana Del Rey has said she may not play this year because of that. And one of the organizers has said there's going to be guaranteed at least one, if not two, women headliners in 2024. So, there's anyway controversy around it. But this is
that Lana is not the headline. I mean, she's amazing and fantastic. Anyway.
I know. And I think Lizzo, another big new name, again, not a headliner, not on the Pyramid stage anyway. So yeah. So we're looking, I mean, we looked back, didn't we, it started on 19th of September 1970, and we saw a ticket, 10 a.m., £1. You got free milk because it was a dairy farm and free camping. So it was kind of in the free festival theme. And the Kinks were scheduled to headline, but they pulled out, and T-Rex headlined. But it was just one day, 19th of September 1970, and I think it was called Pilton Pop at that time as well.
What really strikes me about this chart, and strikes me as rather surprising, is, man, this is a very Virgoan chart. And I have to say, festivals, not something I associate with Virgo particularly. I mean, you've got Libra rising, so yes, that's a host, hostessy, hosty, and social, and it has got a Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Scorpio, mind you, not particularly festive, I would say. It was only fairly successful, wasn't it? I mean, they lost a lot of money, I think.
Well, I think there was only 1,500 people. I don't know that they were doing it for money, particularly the first one. I mean, because it was, this is the end of the 60s. It's the first, it's the start of the 70s, and it's still very much counterculture, free festivals. It's real hippies. It's kind of the right on stuff at this point.
But I think you want to break even, right? That would have been the thing. And I think they didn't even do that.
Yeah.
You want to sort of not lose tons of money because you're not made of money, which is Michael Eavis, by the way. He's the person who started it, right? It was his farm, his idea. He put it together. His enthusiasm, which drove the Glastonbury Festival to continue, whereas lots of other festivals have fallen by the wayside, come and gone. But Glastonbury is persistent and continues.
Yeah, and it sells out fast. Yeah, tickets are hot. They're red hot. I mean, this kind of, to me, it's this, you've got a moon and Saturn as well in Taurus, Sun, Pluto in Virgo, Mars, Mercury in Virgo. There's so much Earth. This to me is like, let's all just go down on the farm and hang out and camp on the farm.
I think that was also the initial kind of thing, was let's get out of London or Bristol or whatever big conurbation you're in. Let's go to a green fields festival in the countryside. Yeah. And this does feel like the countryside, doesn't it?
It doesn't.
Garden of England, into the English, because the English countryside is so beautiful, actually, and gardeny, which is very Virgoan, the relationship between people and the land.
There is, I don't really get the kind of rock and roll and music side of this chart at all. You get the sort of what's going on behind the scenes, which is likely to be the drug side of it, to be honest. Sun-Pluto conjunction, what's going on underneath. And also, I think that Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio, it is suggesting, it does suggest a bit the druggy side of it. More so, really, than the music. This shouts farms and drugs to me.
Strange. How unlike most festivals. It does to me too. I agree. This is a farms and drugs chart, and I mean, especially, and also about transformation, right? Personal transformation, which also you may get if you ingest various, a lot of magic mushrooms, right? Which the Sun-Pluto conjunction. The only thing that is pretty, I mean, there is a musical thing in the North Node in Pisces, and a lot of planning. North Node in Pisces making conjunction to Pallas Athena. But also, Lilith is up there. This is like, let's go wild in the countryside. Really, let's get wasted is what this chart says to me. But we have another chart, right? Because this one was like semi-successful, but not a huge thing. And also they moved it the following year to a different time of year.
Yeah, and now it's always, and since 1971, it's always aligned with the solstice. It's during the solstice that Glastonbury takes place. And I think in 1971, it was already, I don't know whether it was the full 5 days that they do now, but certainly they did 3 or 4 days. And it was 1971 that it was called the Glastonbury Festival. It wasn't Pilton Pop anymore. It was Glastonbury Festival. So in a way, this feels like the more official chart of Glastonbury.
This
The
feels
following
right
year.
to me because this one says huge, massive, freaking festival of music. Why? Because the Neptune. Suddenly we get the Neptune is like really resounding now because it's at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, which is the sign of let's party.
Yeah.
On a on a massive scale, Sagittarius, it's not going to do things by halves. This is going to be something that's done in a big way. And what's more, it even makes a conjunction to Jupiter. So it's a Jupiter Neptune. It's on a Jupiter Neptune conjunction that this Glastonbury Festival has moved to, which is so much more appropriate. And it's totally Gemini. It's all about people and hanging out with your mates. And it's a tribal gathering, as we know. It's, there's the people who do Glastonbury. They're like it's tribal people. It's like they're going and hanging out with your mates and your brothers and your sisters.
Yeah. I mean, Sun, Mercury conjunction in Gemini and Venus in Gemini, Saturn in Gemini, all at the peak of the chart. Moon in Taurus, again, there's that, back to nature theme still of it.
Yeah.
And I think there is that aspect of festivals is that you step out of your sort of, your hustle and bustle of life, and you go back and put your wellies on or your sandals if the weather's right. It's not always in England in the summer.
Yeah,
and you stomp around in the fields. So there's always going to be, I mean, that I think that's part of it as well. It's not just about the music, it's about going back to basics in a way.
Well, it's also about London. London comes to the countryside, isn't it? Right.
Yes.
And London is a Gemini town. And suddenly, basically, what happens is that London sets itself up again in a big field in the middle of the country, of the Somerset countryside, in Glastonbury. And it's like a big pop-up, isn't it? I can't remember, what the statistics are for how many thousands of, plastic bottles are used and all of that. I think they've banned them in the past few years, since 2019. But, basically a city is erected in the countryside. And I think that's very kind of interesting, sort of Gemini thing, up and down, a Potemkin village almost, and also it's got, if we go with the 10 a.m. time, it does have Leo rising at that point, so the sun in Gemini rules the whole thing. And that gives it a kind of, the Gemini-ness of it gives it this airy liveliness, and this sociability, and conversations, chit chat, that you encounter people at Glastonbury, you encounter people at festivals. And I also like the fact that it's making a trine to Mars in Aquarius, which is again an incredibly social sign, and a trine to Uranus in Libra. So it's all the social signs, these air signs are in a beautiful grand trine. They're all communicating with each other. So it's about communications. And at the center of those communications is this incredible conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune in music. So it is about the music now, and the drugs, because those are also indicated by Neptune. Neptune rules drugs and music, which can be a little confusing.
Yes, and I just think the other thing to say about this, if you're looking at this chart in particular, and it's like, is this festival going to be successful? It's a complete yes, because it's like, wow, look at this at the peak of the chart. Everything's in the 10th house. It's just, there's people are going to flock to this. They're going to pay money for it as well. Moon in Taurus. But it's got legs. It's going to continue, and it has, hasn't it?
Well, really? I also think one of the continuing things about it is the Saturn in Gemini at 0 degrees, opposite Neptune at 0 degrees. And the Saturn makes a conjunction with Venus-ish and with the moon-ish. It's right between those two. So again, it just creates this great social event. And to me, there's the music, but there's also the sociability. And also it's become, it's like I was saying before at the beginning, it's televised, right?
It's
now.
televised,
It's been for years. So it's become this integral part of culture here.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's become now kind of a real contemporary arts. I mean, there's all sorts. It's not just about the music. There's a green fields healing area. There's theatre. There's comedy. There's poetry. There's astrology. Do you know what I mean? It's brought in all these different elements as well. So it's been successful in lots of different ways, and keeping, I think, all that the Gemini stellium up at the peak of the chart. It's kind of extending out to lots of different areas. So there's something for everyone in a way as well. You know, I know people who go and hardly listen to the music. They go off and do everything else because there's so much going on.
Yeah, and also it fits in with that Gemini curiosity.
Yeah.
There's multiple things to do. There's a lot going on. So if you consider that, you know, Gemini is a doubling sign, this chart actually has the Sun, Mercury, Ceres, Venus, Saturn, all in Gemini. So that's a lot of activity. It just shouts activities, doesn't it? Then that makes that trine to Mars and Aquarius, which is again a lot of activity. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, I think that seems to me that Mars in Aquarius, and it's an incredible feat of organization. There's Pallas Athena in Taurus in the 9th house, right close to the peak. You know, there's an organizing print. There are people, organizers behind this who are, I mean, that it's no mean feat to do this every single year and get the stuff there on time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of organization as well, isn't it? It needs to be properly organized. It's a full-time job getting this organized. Yeah. I think also I like, you know, the Gemini, because Gemini is one of the star signs I associate with young people. And I think as well, there's a lot of kids who go to it now, as far as I know, that there's family things, you know, behind the scenes going on as well. So trying to draw in the younger crowd too, maybe.
I think we should have a look at Michael Eavis's chart, because he is the person who started. His daughter runs it now, and she has for a long time as well, hasn't she? Like 10 years at least. She's been the main person.
Over 20 years, I think, since the death of her mother in 99. So she's co-organizer. I think Michael Eavis is, you know, he's late 80s now, but I think he's still involved in it. And he was the founder. It was his farm. So, you know, he's a key player in this, isn't he?
Well, he's the main person, really. I mean, it was his farm, it was his idea, and he got those people to come. So his persuasion that did it. So we haven't got his birth time, so we've done a sunrise chart for him. And immediately, you know, one of the things we were saying, the difference between these two charts is one's really Virgoan, and where's the Sagittarius? You know, you want the Sagittarius for Big South Festival. And Eavis has got Mars in Sagittarius. He's got, you know, and possibly in the 3rd house. But, you know, that Mars in Sagittarius makes a beautiful sextile to his sun in Libra. What do you think of that sun in Libra?
Well, you know, mediation, negotiation, isn't it? It's, you know, that needs to be part of it. It's winning the people over to come and perform. You know, you've got to have that skill. And I imagine there's a lot of that goes on, not just with, you know, getting the musicians, but everything. I mean, he's got Sun Mercury conjunction in Libra.
I think he's a charming man, don't you? I bet
charming, good at communication, good at winning people over, which is, you know, hugely needed for this kind of event. Also, just to say, I mean, immediately I noticed that Jupiter's in Scorpio here in his birth chart. So he was having his Jupiter return because in the original chart, there was a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio. So, you know, 35, 36, you have your Jupiter return every 12 years. And that's often, I always think that things that begin under Jupiter can be successful. They promise a lot.
And also, I mean, one of the interesting things about that Jupiter in Scorpio is it's really good to do something that you really believe in if you have that combination, to do something with a lot of integrity that you have a lot of faith in.
Yeah.
and to do something really real. And he did that on that
Yeah.
Jupiter return. I also noticed that he probably has Moon in Cancer,
Mm-hmm.
but it's at zero, it's early Cancer, so it might be in Gemini. But it's still going to be making some conjunctions to the Gemini planets in the Glastonbury chart, right, to the sun.
Yeah.
I think the sun's at the end. I can't remember, but yes, it is. The sun is at the very end of Gemini, isn't it?
Yeah.
But his moon is somewhere near the solstice degree. His moon is somewhere near the solstice degree, but also it's in Cancer, so it's on his farm. It's on his place. Cancer is like, come to me, my babies. Come to my place, come over to my house. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to give you milk.
Milk. It doesn't do that anymore, I don't think. Don't go expecting free milk, but he did.
It's literally a dairy farm that he's running, right?
Yeah,
milk is a Cancerian liquid. This is the sign that rules the breasts.
Yeah, and it would be amazing. I know we don't have a time for him, but just the fact that, again, you've drawn up the chart for this, and the moon is at 0 Cancer, and that is exactly the solstice degree when the sun moves into Cancer, 0 degrees Cancer, and the whole festival is built around the solstice. So isn't that, that's beautiful as well?
I bet he's born around then. That would make sense to me.
Yeah.
We won't know. The other thing in this chart is that he has got a conjunction of Neptune and Venus, right?
In Virgo.
Virgo. But he loves music. That's really his motivation for this, is he loves music. And I kind of wonder if he's done that thing of thinking, I really love music. I want to see these bands, but, I have this farm to run, so I need to get them down here. Otherwise, I'm never going to have the time to, go see this stuff. I need to bring it to me, and also I love the fact that it's in Virgo, because we're back to this, and I love the countryside. I love nature. I love the earth.
Yeah.
And I want to share it.
Yeah. I mean, that Venus Neptune is a tribal gathering, listening to music down on the farm, isn't it? In the fields. And also that it's that Venus Neptune in Virgo it's a lot of work to organize. It's a full program always. So, I'm sure there's this whole kind of army of people behind who are getting it organized as well.
Well, I wonder
real love of music, that Venus Neptune conjunction.
Yeah. And also I think that he's pretty good at detail, because I'm looking at the Pallas Athena in Virgo, which is probably helpful as well. So it's like he has the big idea, which is, this the Neptune and the Mars in Sagittarius. That's the big idea stuff. But then he's able to concentrate and actually do the real administrative work that's required in order to get it done. And that chimes. So and also the thing I really like about this is that, the first festival wasn't, he might have just stopped there, right? Because maybe it was like, okay, but the headliners canceled and whatever, but he didn't stop. He tried it again, slightly differently, moved the time. And I think that's also Mars and Sagittarius. It's like, okay, well, that wasn't so good, so we'll change a little bit and we'll try again.
Yeah.
That flexibility.
Yeah. Quite incredible. I mean, he's heading for his third, he's got Saturn at 3 degrees Pisces. So he's heading for his third Saturn return. Quite extraordinary man to have had this legacy of the Glastonbury Festival. And it's still going strong.
That's an interesting word that you're using, is the legacy. And I have to say, I associate Vesta with legacy.
Okay.
And you can see that Vesta makes a conjunction to Saturn in this chart. It's if we're using the sunrise chart, it is in the 5th house, and it's in Pisces. So he's got this legacy, which is literally music.
Yeah.
It's musical, he's that, and it's going to last because it's Saturn.
Yeah.
We will be using his daughter's chart as well, but she is very, very cagey about her birth time. It's not available on the internet.
Yeah, we just know the month, so we can't. I mean, there's no point going there, really. Which is a shame, because I think she's a big player now. But yeah,
she runs it. I mean, so it's her, she's the organizer now. So it's actually a female run thing.
Yeah.
Which is why it's interesting that there's this controversy about not actually having enough women headlining.
Well, I think she's going to address it. I think she has to. I mean, the times we live in, that's what is becoming the new controversy, really. So we'll see. Anyway, interesting. Anything else you want to say about Michael?
I just want to say that those middle degrees of Gemini, also, this is a healing for him, I think. There's something that he's healing because of his Chiron and Gemini, and the Chiron and Gemini fits in again with that very Gemini chart of the festival, right? The one that we really think is the really, really festival chart, the 1971 chart. And that those degrees are kind of rock and roll degrees, those middle degrees of those two signs, Sagittarius and Gemini. You see them a lot in the ascendant or the sun of big rockers.
Yeah.
And I wonder if for him, music is also a healing thing. It heals his soul somehow. And that he wanted to share that.
Yeah.
And also, one last thought with that Chiron and Gemini. It shows our wound, Chiron, but it can show that, maybe he was lonely, and he needed to get some other people down on the farm with him. He needs to surround himself with people.
Yeah, maybe. And Libra, Libra, that love of connection as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Libra needs people.
Yeah.
Needs to be part of a group, and partnership. I don't know anything about his private life. Okay, interesting. Well, have a great festival, people who are going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tickets. Have a great festival. The rest of us will just, watch from the side.
Watch on TV.
Or go to a different festival. Because there's so many now.
Yeah. Okay, take care. See you soon. Bye.